Alien Earth just did it again, man. I swear, just when I thought this show couldn't get any better, they lean over and say, hold my beer, son, watch this, and brutally kill off a core character. Hello everyone, I'm Finn. Welcome back to Finn Films. Join me once again as we are breaking down everything that happened on this week's episode of Alien Earth, Hulu's epic, badass, horror alien streaming series. An episode where one of our core characters, one of the hybrids named Toodles, gets his face completely melted off. So then once again, join me this week for Alien Earth episode 6 in a nutshell. Last time on Alien Earth, we got a full flashback episode, as we saw the events that led up to the crash landing of the Yutani ship, in an episode that very much pays homage to the original Alien film, and all in all, might have been my favorite episode of this series so far. Episode 6 opens back in the present, as we see Wendy in the lab, the camera panning over every creature in the lab in a very foreboding, foreshadowing shot, as we see the xenomorph eggs, the eye creature embedded in the body of the sheep, who we learned from episode 5 is insanely intelligent, the young xenomorph that was recently born, the creature already having grown much larger, as well as a strange nest on the ceiling of one of these chambers, these weird fly-like creatures residing inside. All the while, the voice of Boy Cavalier rings out, as he reads a passage from Peter Pan, specifically about how Wendy in the Peter Pan story knew that one day she would have to grow up, as we watch Wendy, aka Marcy, communicate with the xenomorph. Again, this scene is packed to the brim with foreshadowing and deeper meaning. Cavalier's passage about Wendy and Peter Pan and her growing up very much mirroring the journey that Wendy, aka Marcy, is going through in this episode, how she is forced to grow up. Marcy, as we will see in this episode, even going so far as to ask herself the question, does she even want to be human? As well, we see some major foreshadowing for the events of the climax of this episode and the very unfortunate series of events that happen with Toodles. But we will cover that later in the video. Meanwhile, Joe and Kirsch are watching Wendy interact with the xenomorph. Joe asking Kirsch if Wendy is really safe. Kirsch being confused by the question, as physically she's completely safe, and as far as Kirsch is concerned, Wendy isn't even human, so mentally and emotionally, she's always going to be fine. Joe begins then probing for more information, wanting to know how her recharge process works and any maintenance that she would need, as Joe hopes that one day Wendy can leave and that he could take care of her, Joe throughout this episode planning on how to escape from the island with Wendy. Kirsch hitting Joe with what is possibly one of my favorite lines so far of this entire series.
One day she's gonna graduate, right, from this place, and when she does, she's gonna need someone to take care of her.
That's like an onion asking, how do I take care of a star?
Kirsch very much giving Joe a reality check that Wendy will never be allowed to leave. And if she does, she isn't just going to live a normal life as a normal person. As in his words, Wendy has the potential to invent faster-than-light technology and explore the stars for thousands of years. She is never going to live just a normal human life. But we can tell that Joe is desperate to get his sister back, and very much still views Wendy as a child, as the little girl that he grew up with. We change scenes over to the Sylvia couple, who are doing maintenance on Nibs, after her pregnancy outburst and her intimidating encounter with Dame a few episodes prior. Cavalier's right-hand man orders the Sylvias to fix her, to erase her memory of the past week that has caused the malfunction, and to alter her personality to prevent any more traumatic or emotional outbursts in the future. Arthur pushes back, refusing to do this, refusing to change her personality and tamper with her humanity. To his shock, his wife Sylvia agrees to do it, however. Arthur then getting fired on the spot for disobeying a direct order. We flash back over to Joe and Wendy, who are talking about the alien specimens. Joe believing that it was a mistake to bring them here, as his outlook on these alien specimens are that they are just predators, animals who rely only on their base instincts, like food and survival. Joe having the classic human view, that we are better than most animals, simply because of our intellect and because of the societies that we have created. Wendy pushing back, saying that humans are no different to any other animal. We aren't better than any other animal just because we have intelligence and we can create societies and technology. And if anything, humans, because of our intelligence, are worse than our average animal, as we do not simply kill just to survive, just to eat, but we experiment and we play God, which I'm not gonna lie, is pretty hella based from Wendy. Wendy also believing that this baby xenomorph could possibly be a good creature, as she explains that Boy Cavalier has created a yes place on Neverland, where yes is the only answer, as yes opens the door to all possibilities. Joe trying to change the subject, telling her he's working on a way to get them out of there. Wendy responding, saying, what if she doesn't want to go? Alt J's Tessellate then begins to play in our ears, which is a banger song, by the way, as we switch scenes, seeing an arbitration meeting between Cavalier and Yutani, accompanied by Morrow to discuss the dispute over the crashed ship and the specimens. The outcome is to be decided by a third party, which represents the 5 major companies. Yutani puts forward her argument that the ship and its specimens belong to her, and that she will gladly pay a settlement for the damages to his city and all of the lives lost. Cavalier putting up an expert counter-argument as he hilariously outwits Yutani, as he convinces Yutani to pay him $20 billion in a settlement fee, agreeing to give back the specimens, but only after they are quarantined with him for 6 weeks, as is the law that has been established by the 5 companies. Yutani being forced to accept these terms publicly, as she later speaks with Morrow after the meeting. Morrow saying that he could possibly get a xenomorph by the end of the day with his recruited asset, aka Slightly. Morrow also putting forth another plan, to destabilize the Prodigy facility and then exfiltrate the assets in the chaos, to which Yutani agrees. We then get a rather tense scene between Morrow and Kirsch on the elevator, both of them making snide comments and threats at one another, foreshadowing what I think is a very likely face-off between the synthetic and the cyborg. Back on Netherland, we see Dame Sylvia going through with the memory wipe and personality change on Nibs. Nibs waking up in her room to see Wendy watching over her. The 2 girls talking when Wendy discovers that Nibs has no memory of saying that she was pregnant or the events on the crashed ship. Wendy realizing that either Dame or Arthur Sylvia must have done something to make her forget. We see Slightly alone in the woods, talking with Morrow, the boy becoming more and more desperate to complete his mission and save his mother, who Morrow is holding hostage. He is then interrupted by Smee, the best boy character, who just wants to hang out and play with his best friend, Slightly promising to hang out with him once he, in his words, finishes his stuff, the 2 boys hugging. We flash over to Joe, who is in his room, making a map of the facility, as he is very much still planning on escaping with Wendy. He is then interrupted by Slightly, who is being weird as hell. As if we remember, Slightly's plan is to get a facehugger to infect Joe and then deliver this body to Morrow. Slightly saying he wants to show Joe something, but it's a secret. And Joe is obviously very sussed out by this. They are then interrupted by one of Joe's old teammates, as they are going on patrol and need an extra man, Joe leaving and going with him to Slightly's disappointment. The team walk through the raining forest, Joe asking probing questions about how to potentially get off the island, learning that there is a boat dock on the island, his team members telling him to stop whatever he is planning, as it's not like Joe is being very subtle about him trying to escape with Wendy. Back in the lab, we see Wendy continuing to talk with the young xenomorph. Kirsch contacts Toodles, telling him to take Curly with him and go take care of all the creatures in the lab. Toodles, wanting to impress Kirsch and be his favorite, decides to go alone, something that he will very much regret, as we watch him begin feeding the creatures. However, the feeding door for the fly creature is stuck, Toodles accidentally breaking it, pulling it off. He then decides to do something extremely stupid. Toodles unlocking the door, stepping inside the chamber, holding it open with his foot. The sheep, possessed by the eye creature next door, headbutts the glass, startling Toodles, who falls to the ground inside the chamber, the door closing, locking him inside. Again, we learned from the last episode, the flashback episode, just how smart this eye creature is, and how it seemingly is almost like the ringleader for the other alien specimens, as it very much seems to me like the eye creature is going to be the central downfall to all of Neverland. Toodles is now stuck inside the chamber with the flies, as in a horrifying scene we watch the fly creature spray him with some kind of acidic substance, as he collapses to the ground, his skin melting off as he dies. This scene was absolutely tense, horrifying, and extremely fucked up, and man did I love it. Over to Wendy, who is meeting with Dame Sylvia. Wendy asking her questions on what she did to Nibs. Dame trying to explain that what she did was ultimately to help Nibs, and she is just trying to protect all of the hybrids and care for them. Wendy telling Dame that she doesn't want to be people if this is what people do. Wendy repeating to Dame what Kirsch told her, that synths can get rid of all sadness, madness, and emotions, and see the world for how it really is. As again, we see Wendy struggling with her humanity, the fact that the hybrids very much straddle the line between human and machine. Dame telling her she needs to tell her what's wrong so she can help fix it. Wendy simply replying with this.
What if you're what's wrong?
Again, this scene very much kind of embodies the internal struggle between Wendy, the two sides that she has, her synthetic side and her human side. Wendy realizing the problem with humanity, the fact that our human nature, our human superiority complex, and our love of playing God makes us worse than many of the animals that exist on this planet. We then flash over to Arthur, who is packing his things, getting ready to leave. He is interrupted by Joe, who wants to know if Wendy is actually safe here on Neverland. Arthur looking over at the camera that is watching them, as he says of course they are safe, offering to show Joe the vitals of the hybrids on the computer monitor. Joe looking at the monitor where Arthur has written, "Take her and get her out." Arthur giving Joe the boat code. Arthur then showing Joe that he can turn off the hybrid trackers and audio monitors, as he does so. Joe realizing this is his chance to take Wendy and actually leave, as he quickly exits the room. Arthur then notices an error message on the monitor, that Toodle's tracker isn't connected, his last known location being at the secure lab. Of course, we know that this is because Toodle has been melted into parts, as Arthur then quickly rushes out to investigate. We move over to Slightly, who is outside of the secure lab, trying to psych himself up to complete the mission for Morrow. Meanwhile, we see that Kirsch is watching Slightly remotely on a monitor. Arthur then shows up at the lab, wanting to see what has happened to Toodles, Slightly realizing that his original plan can still work. He will just have to substitute Arthur instead of Joe. The two then enter the lab, where to Arthur's shock, he sees Toodles collapse on the ground. He opens the door to the specimen chamber, seeing the melted face of Toodles, as he attempts to pull him out. Slightly in the commotion, opening the chamber for the xenomorph eggs, as we watch the egg open in the presence of a human. Arthur looks over, seeing the door to the egg chamber open, as he hears the scurrying of a creature in the lab with him. What we know is the facehugger. He quickly rushes to the door, trying to leave, seeing Slightly on the other side, as he is now locked in. Arthur begging Slightly to let him out, but Slightly does nothing. Arthur attempts to call for help on the intercom when he is suddenly attacked by the facehugger, the creature attaching itself to his face, constricting his neck as Arthur collapses on the ground. All the while, Kirsch is watching this entire scene play out on the monitor, Boy Cavalier asking him if everything is alright. Kirsch, to our surprise, lying, saying that everything is fine. An interesting move, as we know that Kirsch has been aware of what is happening with Slightly and Morrow, but he has so far made no moves to stop it, and now he is lying to Cavalier. Kirsch's motives and in-game so far in this show are seemingly a complete mystery, a complete enigma, but we know that this synthetic is up to something. Slightly then rushes into the lab, as he drags Arthur's body over to a vent, shoving it inside. The door to the fly's chamber is still open, as the creatures escape, flying towards Slightly, who barely manages to get inside the vent in time with Arthur. The camera then slowly begins to pan across all of the creatures in the lab and the dead Toodles, in a scene that very much mirrors the opening moments of the episode, the camera stopping on the sheep possessed by the eye creature, as episode 6 of Alien Earth comes to an end. And yes, that was Alien Earth episode 6. What an absolute doozy of an episode. I swear, man, this show is spinning so many different plates. They're playing with so many different, different through lines and plot lines intersecting one another that is just making my head spin. When I first saw that Hulu FX was making an Alien streaming series, I didn't think it was going to be this good, let alone this deep. I knew it would be good. I knew it would be scary. This is the Alien franchise we are talking about, but I didn't think it would be, I don't know, just this open, this good, this expanding of the lore. This isn't just an Alien show. It isn't just a show about the xenomorphs, a horror show kind of replaying, the many plot lines of the many different Alien movies that we've seen so far in just a horror sci-fi show. The showrunners have really taken the kind of world and the universe that Alien is set in and really ran with it. I mean, at this point, the xenomorphs in our show are really just one of these side plot lines compared to everything else going on here. Like, there's so much stuff going on here, whether it's like the interpersonal kind of relationship dynamics and storylines, like specifically between Joe and Wendy, most obviously, but then obviously there is the nature of like the hybrid synthetics and their place in the world of Alien, and how all of these kids, as they are basically still kids, are ultimately finding their humanity or lack of it, what will happen to the hybrids, in the future of this show, what is going on with Kirsch, the synthetic, and his kind of role in all of this, as there is very much something going on with this character. He is very much planning something, and I'm sure there are tons of theories out there as to what exactly Kirsch is planning. If he is somewhat masterminding a lot of this in the background, he is very much seemingly working towards his own ends. His ends don't it ends seemingly not aligning with Boy Cavalier, his boss and creator. Really though, I think one of the things that I love about this show is the kind of expansion of the alien universe, especially in terms of like the other fauna, the other alien specimens we are seeing, all of these other creepy, horrifying creatures that are just as scary and horrifying as the xenomorph itself. And in many times we learned that some of these creatures are almost more dangerous, if not more dangerous. Specifically, I think of the intelligence of the eye creature, the fact that this creature we saw in the flashback was able to tangle with the xenomorph, and that its intelligence is, extremely high. It seemingly is smarter than even humans, so smart in fact that it's almost like masterminding all of the chaos that is going on here in the lab. It very much seems that way, and I can't wait to see what ultimately ends up happening with this eye creature. Again, there is very much more to this story with this eye creature and how its kind of role will play in the grand story as a whole. I can only imagine like where this creature will end up, what person this creature will end up taking over. If it ends up somehow in a synthetic, even though I don't think that would work, but part of me wonders also if it would, if it could even take over a xenomorph, possibly, or some other kind of, organic or non-organic life form. I'm really not sure. I'm actually, now that I think about it, I wonder if it's going to take over Morrow's body, who is both, organic and non-organic, because he is a cyborg, as that would be absolutely mental and quite the turn of events for this character. There's really just so much going on here in this story, so many moving parts with so many different storylines, so much mystery, deepening down the rabbit hole, and I am absolutely in love with Alien Earth. This show has low-key become one of my favorite shows that has come out all year, and one of my favorite shows that has come out in a long time. In a year without, a new season of Fallout, without a new season of shows like, House of the Dragons, other big, big budget, massively popular AAA live action shows. It is great to see, Alien Earth cementing itself now as one of the new, go-to big shows, and very much breathing life, I think, into the Alien franchise. Not that the Alien franchise needs breathing life into, but in my opinion, the last few movies that have come out, the kind of prequel movies, while I have liked them, definitely haven't lived up to, I think, the hype of, the old school original Alien movies that really put them on the map. As, in my opinion, the first few Alien movies are, the pinnacle of sci-fi horror, and it really feels like they are embodying that vibe in this series, and even more so, as they are able to tell really expansive and interesting stories in this long-term story format, which is the awesome thing about a live-action, streaming series, as they can tell the story in much more detail. They can take their time with it and really stretch things out, which I think works in a show like this, in the stories that they're trying to tell. And yeah, I'm just absolutely in love. I can't wait to see this story unfold more, as I just have so many theories and ideas on what exactly is going on here. And I already know that they're going to throw us a curveball, and probably all of my theories are going to be proven wrong. So I just can't wait to see what happens. As always, guys, if you did enjoy this video, learn something new, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to support me. And it really does go a long way in putting this video into the algorithm. Let me know your thoughts and opinions about this week's episode of Alien Earth in the comment section down below, as well as any crazy theories that you might have. If you did enjoy this video, then want to check out some of my other content on screen now, like my video going over last week's episode of Alien Earth. And as always, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace, love, auto.